Okay, so this is not going to be scripted. I have a loose idea of what I want to talk about, but I don't have it physically written down, and so we're gonna hope that this goes okay. I apologize in advance, one, to the audience for like having to deal with awkwardness and bad wording and stuff like that, but I really want to apologize to future me for having to edit me being awkward and being just not good at saying stuff. So I apologize. I'm sorry, Mara. I just didn't want to write this. I had the ideas and it just wasn't getting written down. So I apologize. I'm sorry. Okay. So how many of you guys have seen the movie Frozen? I'm going to assume everyone has, but I also realized that I live kind of in this like petri dish of college and Tumblr and YouTube, and so what I think that everybody has seen isn't actually the public. It's just this small group of people that I live with, and so I'm sorry if I assume differently, but if you don't know what it is, you can look it up, because I don't really want to spend time explaining it. There are a very enthusiastic group of people that think that Frozen is just the best movie in the world. It's like super progressive, super feminist, like it's just like Disney like redeeming themselves for all of the really, really terrible messages they've given in the past, and this is just going to be just great. Great from now on. It's just the best movie ever. There is an equally enthusiastic group of people that say that this is a terrible, terrible movie and it's really not feminist at all. And it's a really dangerous thing to put the term like feminist under it, because then it gives so much more power and it's like, yes, you can give this to your children and not say anything about it. And that's just a really dangerous power for them to have. And I kind of tend to go more over to that side, but I really want to be on this like gray area of like there's some good parts to it, but there's some bad parts too. When you're in a group that doesn't get a lot of images for yourself, you just grab on to like the one image that they give you every like 20 years, and they're like, this is amazing, but then you're like, no, it's not. Don't put so much emphasis on one. And you wouldn't have to if there were more images like it, but there aren't, and so it's the cycle of bad and passionate, and then you fight within yourselves and you get caught up in stuff. That's something that feminists have to deal with a lot, because it's just like, oh, there's no good images of like females, that's always terrible, and then there's like one that's like semi-good and everybody's like, yes, this is amazing, and then you're like, no, let's not put it like as the best movie ever in the world. Can we just have pros and cons? Can we not always have a this is the best or this is the worst? Going back to Frozen, some of the issues that people have are, the fact that like Anna and Elsa look the exact same, like the faces are the same and they are the exact same as Rapunzel. And then when you look at all of them, like all of the Disney female characters kind of look the same, or at least the princesses do. Of course villains can look different, but all of the female princesses have the same face and the same body, and you're like, this is not a healthy thing to tell people or to tell children. I could talk about that because I did a speech on that one time, but instead I'm going to give you an article to read, and hopefully that'll make it better. I kind of want to talk about the whole problem of like the whitewashing issue, the fact that like all of them are white, and that's kind of a problem. And some people are talking about it in terms of the origins of the story, and that it's not historically accurate, that some of the people there should be based off Sámi, but there's then the problem that those people would say that they would pass as white, and there's an article for that too if you want to read that. I'm gonna move on from that because I totally think that historical accuracy is a really important thing to discuss. But I want to talk about like the whole problem of being presently accurate, like the fact that our population is not all white. The target audience for this is American children, and American children are not all white. And I just think that that's the worst thing to, like, worst excuse to say, like, oh, well, the story is historically white, so we should keep it white. The whole fantasy level of it, the fact that like there's a snowman talking and there's magical ice powers, I don't think that's historically accurate. I just think that that's a bullshit reason for having all white people in a story, because that's not what media is for. Media is for portraying what the culture is today. I think that it's super important to look at this and think, I want everyone in their homes or in the theaters to be like, yeah, there I am, that's me. The problem with having all white people, all skinny people, only male or female, only straight, only having a male be the lead or the leader or the hero is a problem. Only having the female be a damsel in distress is a problem. I think having these single images is a problem because that's not what our society is. Our society is so much more than that, and I think that it's a real rude thing for them to do, to just kind of push all those people away. And also, I personally think that it's become quite boring to just see the same thing over and over again. I think that you can delve into a lot more things if you had more diverse representations, because they're really interesting stories and people can still relate to them because they're humans, funny enough. So my biggest dream or dream job would be to be a writer, even though that's kind of turned into be a script writer, screenplay person. I definitely think that my focus on more film-based media has been a result of me wanting to go more into that realm. I think that's also true in the fact that I've been formatting my stories differently. I've kind of been formatting it in a like YouTube kind of sense, because I thought that I could be like, oh, blockbuster, and like everybody watches my movies and it's awesome. And that's just not, probably never gonna happen because of the way that it's set up. It's just not really likely that they would take my pitch. And I just don't really want to anymore. And I also have never been a big fan of like indie films. That just seems not my cup of tea. But YouTube I can get. It's maybe because I breathe and live YouTube, but I'm sure there's like other reasons. Anyway, over the last couple of years, I've been kind of reflecting on my own work, my own stories, because they tend to be fantasy slash romance, but I've realized that they're really just the same stuff as before, where they're just like white people and they're straight people and they're not healthy relationships and they're not really interesting relationships. They're good stories, they're good concepts, but there's a lot that could be worked on. And so I think these last couple of years of learning about representation and just the diverse life that we all live, I've kind of changed it. I've changed a lot. The old stories that I have are kind of being rehashed, and I'm changing ethnicities, genders, and I think a big thing that I've been changing is like the relationships that my characters have, like adding friendships, because there's I'm not quite sure the term. I think it's Bechdel, but I'll look it up later. But this concept that characters are not there just for romance, or female characters aren't there just to help the romance plot. And so I think it's really important to have characters that like have a well-rounded relationship and life with everybody, and it's not just focused on the man and like everything else goes to shit, or like everything else is just forgotten and like, oh, I'm happy with my husband and nothing else. And then also in the new stories, they're like 80% of them have become these like queer girls, and I just love them because they're so cute. They're so cute. I'm so happy. I feel like I'm forgetting a point that I wanted to say, but I'm just gonna move on. So there's these two people that I've recently found on the internet, and they're beautiful. They're so beautiful, and I love them, even though I've never met them. They are called B and I'm gonna pronounce it wrong, but Nafisah. And they're a cute couple, and I may have felt slightly stalkerish learning about their lives. Anyway, these two people are great examples of just the fact that they don't see themselves in most media, and so they're just gonna make the media that they want and that they see themselves in. There's this great quote I found somewhere that said, be the person that you needed as a child. And I just think that that really applies to media. Make the media that you needed to see as a child, or that you wanted to see, or that you thought would help, because there are those kids still out there that need this. And so anyway, moving on. I'm gonna read you some of what Nafisah says on their Tumblr page. It says, I'm a queer American-born Chinese Muslim. Sexual orientation are demisexual and panromantic. Despite having a girlfriend, I still identify strongly with asexuality. Since non-romantic relationships are a big part of my lifestyle, we consider each other queer, platonic partners, lovers, confidants, and best friends. Gender fluid, androgynous to masculine presenting. I take all pronouns, though I'm used to female pronouns. And they go into other stuff like race, ethnicity, gender, nationality, which is super important. I'm not saying that it's not, but I just want to make sure that this video is kind of short. So I'm going to link to people. B is pretty similar in the sense that she's gender fluid, but is good with she or her pronouns, and they're beautiful people because they've got such great art. It's just got all these different points of view that you never see, and like the bookkeepers, I think is what they call it. It's this magical girl story where they're protecting books because they're getting possessed, and they're possessing people, and they're different genres. Like, this person is history, and she's trans, and she's dating this girl, and she's mystery, and I may or may not have looked at the fan art of these two, and they're adorable. So this has kind of gone weird places, and I really hope that my message has come across. So at this point I'm thinking, well, what can I do? Like, they have art skills. I definitely don't. It's really hard to imagine what I can do because it's really intimidating, overwhelming situation that I find myself in. It's a really overwhelming problem because mainstream definitely is not going to help me, and I don't know. It's hard, but I think about the possibilities that the internet gives me, and I think about how amazing it would be to be able to produce these images and just make them the best thing I could. I know last year I tried to do this fictional character therapist show with my friends, and we're trying to think of like who to cast, and we know like 8 people, and so it's at that point that I'm like, wow, this is gonna be really difficult because I just don't know that many people. And I got really disheartened after that because I was like, wow, I'm just this small person in this huge world, and I just don't, it's not going to work out. But this year I've met a lot more people, and I just think that the concept of being able to get better known will help find more people, and just putting myself out there will help. And I just have access to better equipment now. Even though I'm not taking advantage of the lighting, because lighting is heavy. I'm going to get better at it, but it's heavy. I don't think it's going to be terrible. I think it's going to be hard because I'm going to constantly need to be re-evaluating myself, reflecting on myself, reflecting on the stories that I have, reflecting on the privileges that I have and the advantages that I have. But I think it's doable, and I think it's gonna be great and awesome, and I think it's gonna be beautiful, and I think it's gonna create a change, even if it's a small change. And I think it's gonna make the media landscape that we have just a little bit more colorful.